Birdland Tonight is your place for Orioles post-game coverage for fans by fans. All of the hosts on Birdland Tonight are Oriole fans that are either writing blogs or doing podcasts about Orioles. Head on over to birdlandtonight.com to learn more about the hosts and other shows and websites that they're a part of. And head on over to Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch and subscribe, follow, or like, whatever the appropriate thing is, to Birdland Sports. Finally, share, retweet, and tell your friends about Birdland Tonight so that we're all joined into the conversation after every Orioles game this year. We'll see you guys in just a couple minutes. Head on over to the comment sections on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube to start interacting now. We'll see you soon. Did you know Birdland Tonight is also a podcast? Head on over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe to Birdland Tonight to get the audio of this show every morning ready for your commute. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Make sure that you have subscribed to us on your favorite social media. Look up Birdland Sports on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Like, follow, retweet, share. See you in a moment.
Hey Birdland, here's another episode of Birdland Tonight. Orioles unfortunately lose to the Athletics, score of 3-1. But how are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well, Michael. Glad to be doing the show with you.
Yeah, and unfortunately the Athletics extend their winning streak to 12 games, and the Orioles continue to lose at home. This actually makes them 1-7 at home now, which is, it's been hard to watch them at Camden Yards with the fans finally back and, still lose it all the time.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The road home thing is bizarre. But the story of this game for me, and we'll get into the start by Jorge Lopez and the bullpen and stuff.
Hmm.
But for me, this is just yet another example of the Orioles offense surprisingly being unable to score runs. I was looking at we've lost now, what, 3 out of 4 games. And in those 3 losses, the Orioles have scored a total of, I got to do the math here. The Orioles have scored a total of 1 run, right, in those 3 losses. And so surprisingly, I think going into the season, the offense seems to be more of a problem than our pitching.
Yeah, definitely. It's really just been so frustrating because when you look at the lineup and you look at the names, especially after 2020, you don't hate what you see. And I think really the approach has been an issue, which we should definitely get into later on in the show. But something I also wanted to bring up is that the Orioles are actually 1-6 now against left-handed starters. So that definitely seems to be an issue for their offense too. Just seeing people come in from the left side.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because Mullins has hit really well against left-handed pitching.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's, I mean, you talk about the approach and the names. What for me is even more like frustrating is because you're right, we have some names, and based on their kind of track record last year, you thought, okay, this could be a good offensive team, but that wasn't even accounting for Cedric Mullins, who's been unbelievable. And so
Yeah,
the fact that he's
definitely.
playing so well and our offense still isn't scoring is mind-boggling. And you wonder with the left-handed pitcher, I didn't know that stat. That's interesting to me, but you wonder, like, DJ Stewart, for example, how much he would be in the lineup if it wasn't for injuries, like to Santander. But even guys that you would think would kind of feast on left-handed pitching, guys like Austin Hayes, and maybe Austin Hayes still getting comfortable after the injury, and right, but he has not looked good. So yeah, the left-handed pitching that's a surprising stat. Just like the home stat surprising. It's kind of too small to draw too many conclusions. But
Yeah.
yeah, those are interesting, certainly interesting and concerning numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And Cody says, bring back Hunter Alberto. VC used to kill lefties.
Yeah.
But definitely something we wouldn't want to bring him back for. And something that I think is really contributing to our offense being so bad really is the approach, as I mentioned earlier. The Orioles are actually the worst in the MLB in terms of taking or swing percentage. They only take half of the pitches that they see, which is the worst in the MLB. And I think that must be correlating with the fact that we have the worst on base percentage and the worst OPS in the MLB. I just think that guys aren't, being patient enough, forcing these pitchers to work and really make mistakes. There are so many innings where, I just felt so frustrated, like the fifth and the sixth, where Irvin was getting a little tired. They could have just worked him a little bit more to really get him to make more mistakes.
Yeah, and you see that in some at bats, like Severino when he got the single to get the RBI, he worked that at bat, but that
Yes,
was the
that was great.
exception, not the rule, right? And you're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
mean, the epitome for that, like the microcosm of our team, he's an extreme example. But Ryan Mountcastle, I feel like every time I look up, he's in an 0-2 or 1-2 count. And
Yeah.
every time you look up 0-0, he's swinging at the first pitch no matter where you throw
Hmm.
it. And that's part of like Ryan Mountcastle's MO, right? Like we knew that about him, that he's kind of a free swinger. But it's almost, you're right, it's become kind of contagious where you have these pitchers going deep into games. Our guys going 4 innings, their other guys going deep into the game because they're getting quick outs because we don't work the count well. And
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's like how much of that is you have players who have been slumping, right? Like Trey Mancini seems to be coming out of this slump, but you have everyone else, almost everyone else in the lineup who is slumping. And so with that, you start pressing, you start swinging earlier in the count, like kind of all that
Definitely.
compounds. And I wonder kind of by midseason or by the end of the season how kind of where we are in those stats. But certainly, like watching Oakland hit and watching us hit, like you could just tell different approaches, right?
Yeah, so different, and definitely on Mountcastle. Some of the advanced stats show like his barrel rate and his average exit velocity that he should be getting a lot more hits. But I think, yeah, like you're saying, he's just pressing so hard that it's hard for him to really be able to drive a pitch the other way or hit it up the middle just for those nice singles, so that he can build up to more extra base hits. But yeah, the Athletics approach was obviously very different. And they even in the second inning where they scored 2 out of their 3 runs, they really showed quite a bit of small ball, the ability to move guys around. They scored on a ground out, on a single, and then they actually did a hit and run, which you never really see anymore. They definitely play very different than the Orioles.
Yeah, and to me, that was the story of the game, with the second inning where Jorge lost control a little bit.
The 2 walks early.
Yeah, and they did play small ball, and they took advantage, right? They took advantage and got their runners in, where we were in kind of a similar position, both in the 4th with runners in second and third, and then the 6th inning where we got the bases loaded and 1 out, being unable to in any way. I mean, that pop up, right? With I think it was Galvis was up with the pop up with the runner, bases loaded. Like, the last thing you want in that situation is a pop up, right? So our inability to get runs in late in the game and their ability to get runs in early in the game was kind of the difference in this baseball game.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's a lot of comments coming in about, I'll take 3 runs by our pitchers every night. And yeah, we just need to get a few runs in from this lineup right now. We're not asking them to score 10 or even 5. Just 3 would have at least pushed it to extra innings. And yeah, I just think we really need to change our approach, stop pressing, and just really, get through the lineup and get guys moving, put it in play, and force them to make mistakes. But
just real quick, Michael, to that point, sure. I think the 6th inning was the perfect example of that, where Severino worked the count and then got that hard hit single, and then Galvis, I believe, I'm testing my memory here, but Galvis, I believe, was like first pitch. It was first pitch changeup. I think he popped it up, and so just the. And that's so frustrating to see a player work so hard, get that single, next guy up, swings at the first pitch. And yeah, if it's a good pitch to hit, but fine. But you take the first pitch and you pop it up. Like that's what you're gonna do with that. So it was just so fresh. And then we grounded out to end that inning with only scoring 1 run, which was so frustrating. And after that, you got the feeling like you don't know if you're gonna have the opportunity like that again, because that doesn't happen all the time in every inning. So. Our pitchers played really well, and I don't know if you want to get into Jorge Lopez and our bullpen, but certainly our pitching is not the reason we lost this game.
Yeah, definitely. And, Madison agrees with you here about the 6th inning being brutal. And definitely brutal. Galvis swinging early, and then Urias against the guy who really wasn't throwing that hard, Petit. So, yeah, that was definitely frustrating. But, to focus more on the positives in terms of our pitching, I wouldn't say Lopez was overall that much of a positive. His curveball actually was swung at 9 times and was hit every single one of those times. So that was definitely a really bad sign. But moving on to the more positive aspect, the bullpen came in and threw 5 scoreless innings. And really everyone looked great, even Sean Armstrong, who's been getting a lot of hate, or not hate, but a lot of flack from the Orioles Birdland community. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's with good reason. He's been bad. Can I just say, I just pulled up my notes again. I'm going to let it go. But that bottom of the 6th inning, we had the bases loaded and Mountcastle came up. And there was, I almost lost my mind. Bases loaded, Mountcastle was up. I don't know if it was the first pitch or whatever. A 91 mile per hour fastball right down the middle. And Mountcastle swung right through it. And then he ends up striking out on an outside changeup that was about 5 feet outside. And Palmer was being really nice, saying, "Oh, it must have looked like a strike coming in," but it was so far outside that it was so ridiculous that I swung at it. Okay, I'm done with the 6th inning. I'm letting it go.
Yeah.
The only thing about Jorge Lopez is, for me, Michael, with Lopez, he's to me the most mysterious pitcher on the Orioles. He had 1 strikeout tonight. This was in his last start. What he was striking out everybody, right? Like no one could touch his stuff. Strikeouts. Yeah, and all that. Like I think in the first 4 innings, and then he got tired, and then he started to give some hits. But this go around, only 1 strikeout is bizarre, and maybe it goes back to that curveball. I don't know how effective his curveball was last start, but certainly the curveball wasn't that effective this start. No, but the bullpen. Yeah. So the bullpen, I was kind of thinking about this today. So you had, let me see, you had Lakins, Tate, Salser, and Armstrong, right? To me, the most surprising thing about this team is the bullpen and how well they've pitched, particularly because who's in there, right? Lakins was a waiver guy, right, from the Boston Red Sox. No one wanted. Tate, the next guy, was traded, bounced around a couple of teams, Yankees, then Texas, then to us. or Texas Yankees, not to us.
Mhm.
But again, a failed starter, former, number 4 overall pick, failed starter who kind of couldn't get together in the minors. Tate, who's not pitching really well for us. Sulser, again, another waiver guy from Tampa Bay who, they didn't want, and we just picked them up. And Armstrong, obviously another waiver guy who we just picked up. So it's remarkable to me that not that our bullpen's going well, but that all these guys are kind of trash heap guys that we've turned into really, effective arms.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's super interesting. It's not like they're prospects that we've developed, throughout their whole careers. Although Tate was a prospect for about a year or two in our system, because I'm pretty sure we acquired him in the Dan Duquette days.
Yeah, he was part of the Zach Britton trade. Yeah, Zach Britton trade.
Yeah, so he's been a prospect for a little while, but yeah, definitely that's a great point. They're all guys who were kind of given up on by their former teams. And yeah, I think they all have really great stuff. They all throw pretty hard and have some really good secondary pitches to work off of it. And they all were really much in control. And for me, that was the most exciting part of the game, was watching our bullpen guys come in and strike some guys out, get people out. Sulser striking out the side was, quite electric. And yeah, I definitely thought that was a solid positive to take away from this game, although overall was disappointing.
Yeah.
And
just related to that real quick, I was thinking about this today too. I was thinking about like Buck Showalter, not just Buck Showalter, any manager. I feel like what they get the most flack for is their use of the bullpen. And it might be because we haven't had that many kind of late inning leads where we could mess up the bullpen, and when you're behind, it matters less who's in the bullpen. But I think Brandon Hyde has done I can't even think of examples where he's done the wrong move with the bullpen. Like I think he's done. I know people criticized him for playing Armstrong tonight, but you got to throw Armstrong in there sometime. But I think Hyde has done really well and used his bullpen really well.
Yeah, I think the only criticism people have is that he'll pull starters too early, but that's a whole different debate about potential injuries and all those sort of factors. And I think a lot of it is the front office pushing him to do that too.
Yeah, well, I thought the Melvin for the Athletics, I was shocked that he kept what's his name in for Severino. Yes. Yeah, for Severino. Yeah. I was like, oh.
Yeah, he really, as Jim Palmer said, he looked like he had no gas left in the tank, but he managed to get some outs, or at least strike out Mountcastle.
Yeah, he struck out Mountcastle. I think that's why I let him pitch to Severino, because he struck out Mountcastle. And I think he got lucky because Severino hit the ball really hard, but just only a single, and then he was pulled. But yeah, that's true. I mean, I think Lopez tonight had 81 pitches, so there does seem to be a bit of a shorter string. And you're right. I don't know how much of that is, we have this whole season to get through. Pitchers didn't throw a lot of innings last year.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think a lot of that could play into that as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, we can talk about the bullpen a little bit more, because Cody's asking a pretty good question. Who does Elias trade away first from the bullpen? Which is a really good question. And he even goes further on to say, will we riot if Cesar Valdez is traded away? Which personally would make me pretty upset. But who do you think would be traded away first from the bullpen if you had to choose any of the guys? Let's just stick to guys who pitched today out of the 4.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's that great of a question by Cody, to be honest. But I don't, because I don't see any of them being traded, because all right, so you have Cole Sulser, right, who couldn't stick anywhere. All of a sudden he has he was okay last year, okay, and now is having a good few months. He's not the if I'm competing for a playoff spot, I don't think Cole Sulser is going to solidify my bullpen and get me over the hump. The only guy is a guy like Valdez, who has been dominant. And again, just because his stuff is so different, though Petit pitched today, and I think they mentioned on the broadcast, it's true. Petit is like Valdez. They're like the same guy. So maybe Valdez, and of course Tanner Scott is the most, the guy everybody would want because he has the best stuff. But the other guys, I mean, like I just went over, they're waiver guys. Like there's guys you just pick up off the trash heap. And I don't think anybody will want them. I would be surprised if we trade maybe a Paul Fry, but of the players pitched today, I would be surprised if any of them go.
Yeah, Josh, to agree with your Paul Fry, that's a pretty good idea. He actually had, by the advanced stats, a fantastic year last year. And I think he's definitely nearing the end of his contract. And, he's maybe not a guy who Elias sees, staying for the long term. But yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing too about what you were saying about the changeup. So Irvin usually has pretty good horizontal movement on his changeup, but today, it was like way above average. I think it was about 4 inches, moving horizontally 4 inches above his own average. So I think that had a lot to do with why guys were swinging at it outside of the zone. But again, their approach could have been better, and they could have just waited to have to fight off those pitches until there were really 2 strikes left.
Yeah, well, even when we had success, Michael, a lot of those hits, especially that 6th inning, came off. I'm going back to the 6th inning. I gotta let it go, but it came off fastballs. They came off. A lot of the hits came off fastballs, right? Definitely. Because the changeup, if you weren't hitting the changeup, but he also was throwing a lot of fastballs. You just kind of have to wait for that fastball and don't miss it when he throws it. Hey, can we also talk about the Elias interview?
Yeah, definitely. I think we should take a quick break, but we'll definitely talk about that first.
Do that. All
right. See you after the break. All right. So what did you think of the Mike Elias interview?
Michael, I thought a lot of things. First of all, I thought it was super fast. That was the fastest, like, top of the inning, bottom of the interview you'll ever see.
I know.
They were like Mike Elias was paying players just to make it get outs real fast. Like it was 3 up and 3 down on both sides, and so it was just a really quick interview. It just made me laugh. But no, he mentioned a couple things. He talked about, first of all, he mentioned that things were going really well. And it stuck out to me that he said at Bowie, but he also said at Florida, and he also said at the Dominican Republic. And that stuck out to me because Dan Duquette would have never said things are going well in the Dominican Republic and the Dominican Republic for in terms of baseball. The other thing is we've been getting, Michael, I don't know how much you pay attention to it. I pay attention to it too much to Jahmai Jones' stat lines at the alternate site, but he mentioned that these, they're playing the Nationals a bunch and they're releasing the box scores. But he said, he doesn't get too excited about minor league simulation games. So I think, like, for fans, including myself, anyone who gets excited that Jahmai Jones goes, 3 for 4 with a home run and says, let's call up Jahmai Jones. I don't think Mike Elias makes that direct correlation to say, oh, he's playing well in these minor simulation games, let's call him up right away. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Cody might disagree with you, saying that we should call up Richie Martin based on his performances, but
but that's fine. But I think Mike Elias would disagree with Cody and say it's just a minor league simulation game. And it's for the Nationals every single time. Maybe this says more about the Nationals or something than it does about us. But he did make a point that I thought was really interesting and really important. The idea of that Norfolk will now, because a lot of guys in the alternate site, he said, will go right to Norfolk. And this is and he says the things that unique about this Norfolk site, or that this Norfolk team, is that there's so many young prospects on the team. And if you go back 2-3 years ago, we would have a bunch of veterans, a bunch of veteran players just in AAA, kind of just in case. But our young prospects who might come up and make a difference kind of always stayed at Bowie. And a lot of players, right, would just kind of skip Norfolk and just go right from Bowie to the Orioles, these young prospects. But I think that's changed this year, where if you look at, especially in the pitching side, Wells, and he mentioned all these guys, Wells, Lothar, Bauman, 3 guys who are young prospect pitching arms, 3 guys who are also on the 40-man who will be pitching at Norfolk. And he also mentioned, related to those guys, that pretty much anyone, because the year as it is, especially if you're a pitcher, the year being as it is, last year being, as it was without the innings, like we mentioned before, like everyone's fair game to play this year if they're on the 40-man. So he hinted at that we could expect at some point this year to see Wells and Bauman and Lothar, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, definitely. I was really excited by the prospect. Well, sorry, not trying to make a pun by saying the word prospect there, but by the prospect of all of these guys getting called up to the team. I remember watching Alex Wells on the Frederick Keys, rest in peace to them. And yeah, just being excited by all this stuff. And, it's a really cool story being from Australia. But yeah, I think definitely all those prospects, instead of just veteran guys, as you were saying, being in AAA definitely speaks to the quality of our minor league system and how that's improved under Mike Elias and in the past 3 years. And yeah, I think also our old regime used to kind of have a lot more prospects in Bowie so that they could easily come up to the team, just like a half-hour drive down 95. But I definitely think it makes sense to challenge the prospects more and have them face the AAA guys who are often players who have been in the major leagues for years. If you look at an average AAA roster of a team's affiliate, you'll probably recognize quite a few names on that team because they're guys who really have experience in the major leagues. So I definitely think that's a positive. And yeah, maybe we'll have to make a road trip to Norfolk when it's safe to do so.
Yeah. And all you have to do is like, I did it. You look back at the 2018, so right before Mike Elias got here. And I think it also has to do with the fact that not just the distance that Bowie was closer, but now it has to do with the fact that we just have a lot more prospects, right? So like it's just naturally like you can't fit them all in Bowie. You got to spread them out.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, but if you look at 2018, right when Mike Elias got here, are the pitchers in Norfolk were Jeffrey Ramirez, Jason Aquino, David Hess, Tim Melville, Jimmy Yacobonis, Jean Martinez, Jolie Rodriguez, like no prospects on this list. And you go to the infield, Drew Dosh, Garabez Rosa, Luis Sardinas, like Jacob deGrom was in the outfield along with Michael Saunders in the outfield. There was just a bunch of kind of these veteran career minor leaguers or 4A players, but not guys that were on your even a team 30-man top prospect. And now Norfolk is going to be full of guys on our 30-man prospect list.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that it's really interesting how they've had to organize it differently. And in some ways, it's almost a challenge to have so many prospects because you have to think about how are we going to keep these guys developing? Who do we want to be close to home in terms of Bowie versus Norfolk? But yeah, I definitely think it's important to challenge the prospects who are more experienced, really give them a taste of facing different major leaguers, instead of just giving them the immediate double bump from Bowie to the major leagues. I think that's really challenging. And, maybe could have been part of the reason why some of our prospects have struggled in the past, other than just having, a rather bare minor league system.
Yeah. And again, in the Mike Elias interview, he talked about how he didn't put much stock in the simulation games, but people are going crazy over them. And it makes me think that once like the minor league games just start, I think in 2 weeks when they start getting the minor league games, and the day Jahmai Jones goes 3 for 4 in a minor league game, like don't get on Twitter because Twitter is going to be all about we need Jahmai Jones right now here in the majors. And maybe we do, but something we know about Mike Elias, he's been really honest about everything. I think that's what I appreciate about him. You compare his interviews with Dan Duquette interviews, and I'm a Dan Duquette guy, but Dan Duquette would you could ask him, how's the weather today? And he would find a way to get around the question or something. But Mike Elias is very honest. He's been very deliberate about not bringing up guys early to kind of learn in the majors, right? Like he is making sure they dominate at each kind of level and then get the call up. And maybe he'll make us an exception for someone like Adley Rutschman because he's an exception. But guys like Jahmai Jones and guys like Lothar and guys like Wells, they're going to have to prove it at that level before they even get a chance to call up. If anything, Elias will wait a month too long than a month too early. At least that's my impression of Elias thus far.
Yeah, which I think is honestly the right way to do things. Why waste a prospect? And sometimes it's the guys who aren't even on your top 30 list who end up being solid players for your franchise for years to come. So, why rush them? Why force them up to the major leagues when, I want to see us win more and I wish we had scored more than 1 run today.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who usually just focuses on the major league team. So, I don't really get much joy out of our minor league teams winning, but I want us to be ready for the long haul. And I really want these guys to have a fair shot at development. And we saw what happened with Richie Martin when he was a Rule 5 pick and he had to be in the major leagues. He made some amazing plays defensively. I remember a couple home runs he had that were pretty clutch and great moments, but overall he struggled on the season. And I bet he's really learning a lot at the alternate site this year, and I'm excited to see how he and Jahmai Jones do perform when they eventually come up, because I honestly think I think Galvis has done, the stats don't lie, he's done a great job so far, but he's obviously not our long-term answer there. And I don't really see Ruiz and definitely not Urias as our long-term answers at second base. So at least for the near-term future, before Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg and all those guys come up, I think that Richie Martin and Jahmai Jones could be, some decent pieces for the next 2 or 3 years at least. So why rush them and not allow them to be as successful as possible?
Yeah, and they may listen. We just lost 3-1, so our concern is the offense. And if you are counting on Richie Martin and Jahmai Jones to help your offense, I would come back at you saying our two best offensive prospects the past couple of years have been Austin Hayes and Ryan Mountcastle. How are they doing right now? I think Mountcastle's like 0 for 50, and Austin Hayes batting 190 right now. And those are our two best offensive prospects. So major league hitting is hard, guys. And so Richie Martin, Jahmai Jones is not going to turn the offense around. Austin Hayes playing better, Ryan Mountcastle playing better will do a lot more than I think Jahmai Jones coming up to help our team offensively.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think Mountcastle is 0 for his last 23, and I may have mentioned this before, but he is doing above average in terms of the advanced stats, and needs to improve his approach a little bit. And Hayes, he hasn't really been able to play that many games this year, so I'm excited to see what he can do in a larger sample size, as well as Mountcastle. I mean, the season really just started, even though I feel like during COVID and everything feels so much longer. Like, it's hard to believe that the season is really only 3 weeks old.
Yeah,
but,
and I think
we definitely need to be patient,
right?
And let these guys develop.
Yeah, because every game feels like you want to kind of overreact and make all these moves just based on one game. But it's a long season. We have to be patient.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's very different. I think also last year is totally skewing our views. I mean, by this point last year, the season would have been a third of the way over. And a third of the way through the season last year, we were actually in a playoff spot, I'm pretty sure. So I can definitely see why we have this angst and frustration. Like, why can't we just win and, do everything we can to win now? Which I think for the most part, they pretty much are doing, other than not rushing up some prospects. But I just think it's a challenging situation. And what I would like to see improve more than anything is, I've been preaching this a little too much this episode, but is the approach. We just need to take more pitches. We need to see what the pitcher has. We need to fight off more pitches until we get a mistake and then punish that mistake. And I think that's what guys like Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes need to and can do to be successful at the plate.
Yeah, certainly something to watch for in this series against the A's. Can we improve in our plate discipline and be a little bit more patient? I think that's definitely something to look for. Exactly.
We have a comment here. This is a rather unfinished comment, but I'm excited to see what Dark Sage has to say. So definitely send in that second comment and we'll put it up. But in the meantime, I just, wanted to kind of get, what are your thoughts about going into the game tomorrow? We actually sent Dean Kramer down about a week ago after his last start, even though he performed decently well, because we were going to play Means on normal rest as the starter tomorrow. But now they've decided to give him an extra day of rest and pitch him on Sunday. So we're going to have a bullpen game. And the bullpen did great today, but how do you think they'll fare tomorrow? And how do you think we'll utilize all of our different pitchers? Maybe some of the Rule 5 guys will find their way in?
I would imagine. I mean, I imagine we would see Wells. But it's weird to me, right? Because the logic for setting down Kramer was because it wouldn't have, it wouldn't affect anything because we'd had the extra 2 off days. How are you going to have 2 off days in a week and then also have a bullpen game, Michael? Like, I don't understand how that works. How are you going to have 2 off days and you still can't find a starting pitcher? What is that? I don't understand this. I don't get the bullpen game. I don't understand why and we use what? How many bullpen arms did we use today? We used like 4 arms?
4. Yeah, 4.
How's this going to work, Michael? I don't know how it's going to work. I have no idea.
Have to see. Hopefully Scarola and Wells just go off, or they just keep them in even if we're losing. maybe they just assume the Athletics are unbeatable at this point.
Yeah, see, my take was
We'll have to see.
I thought for sure we win today because just the do theory, right? Like you can't win every single game. Like you win 11 in a row. Now you got to lose at some point. And I thought maybe the time be up, but the time's not gonna be up tomorrow. So maybe on Sunday.
Yeah, well, with Means, maybe he can be the stopgap. And yeah, the streak kind of reminds me of Moneyball, where they went on that 20-game streak in that movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, Madison's asking really quickly about has the bullpen game been set in stone and that Hyde was non-committal. I mean, yeah, we don't know everything for sure, but I saw that Joe Trezza, who's usually a very reliable source, he's the beat writer for MLB.com, and he said that it would be a bullpen game. So, maybe a guy like Wade LeBlanc, who pretty much is a starter and was actually pretty good last year, maybe he'll start and really actually go a pretty long time. So we'll have to see about that. But yeah, let's look at this comment. Dark Stage finally posted a second one. It's taking up the whole screen here, so we're gonna have to read through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's talking about the owner here. I'm sorry. We're doing a post game show. All right. We're just doing a post game show talking about the game that just happened. Hey, listen, I think the ownership of John and Lou, who now seem to be taking over a lot of the reins for Peter Angelos, I think they've done a fine job. I think they brought in Mike Elias. They're investing in international prospects in that facility, huge facility. They're doing all the right things now. So if you're still talking about the owner, I don't know where you're coming from. But this is not. I mean, we're just doing a post game show. So Michael, I don't know if you're going to address it, but it's a post game show.
No, I mean, it's a post-game show, but it's still the Orioles.
Fine.
Analysis. But just what I would say really quickly is, yeah, I definitely think anything where money is involved can definitely, get out of hand and become too much about deriving value out of the franchise, which we've just seen as an issue in the MLB in general, with teams not really spending enough on their players at times. But I think right now it's just too early to judge. As you said, it's actually, even though it's still Angelos, it's a totally new group. And, I don't want to be judged by how my ancestors or my parents were, even though often we look up to our parents and how they were, that doesn't mean that we have to be the same people. And I think, yeah, definitely the investment in the international market, which is not only great for the team, but great for the Dominican community. All the RBI programs they're running in the community, even the Earth Day, fixing of the garden yesterday was a really great thing to see. And yeah, just all the rebuilding efforts. I think it's too early to judge really a new ownership group. If you want to talk about Masson and the reason why we're doing this show and making it virtual and interactive with the fans, that's a different story. And pretty much anything you want to say about that, I would possibly agree with. But yeah, I think things are going well. And I just love the team and just love the fans. And I'm just excited to see what happens in the future.
Well, yeah, and that's the key, Michael. And I'll tell you, and I don't know. Like he might be right, but what I'll tell you in 2 years if he's right. Because when these prospects come up, we'll see how much the Orioles invest in the team as far as free agency goes and all those moves. So come back to me in 2 years. But don't talk to me that we don't want to win when we don't want to win. Like we're in rebuilding mode here. That's part of the point. We have short-term solutions because we're building something here. And so when we build that in 2 years, and then if we don't invest in the team, I'll be right on board with you slamming the ownership. Definitely. But let's give them a couple years to see if they choose to invest in the team or not. Wait for it.
And let's focus on the positive here. I mean, I know we don't always have the best attendance and everything, but I really just love our fan base. Even tonight, when the bases were loaded in the sixth inning, it sounded like there were quite a bit of people there, even in a game, where we weren't really doing much offensively before that point. And it probably won't lead to a playoff team this year. Our fans just always seem to be engaged and have that passion. And I think that's the most important thing to focus on is, the people and the people who you interact with and love the game with and love the team with.
Yep, I agree, Michael.
Yeah, well, do you have any thoughts about this game or just any more thoughts about, the bullpen game versus Bassett tomorrow, 7:05?
No, Michael,
I actually have no chance.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't even know who's starting. And the way LeBlanc is interesting is an interesting theory. And like he could go, 4 innings. That's possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I would have to see who's pitching and but I'm not I'll tell you what, I'm not optimistic about it. And I really don't understand it, how you have the off days and still have a bullpen game. I don't really get it.
They're just being super careful that, some people have different opinions on that. And I know where Josh stands, and he definitely does not like Hyde and Elias, whoever's deciding that, pulling the starters early. But he'll be hosting the show tomorrow. So
if you can't do it, if you're going to do a bullpen game, then you should have never set down Kramer. That's what I don't get. Then you should have kept Kramer up here. The whole logic was behind.
Pitched today in Bowie.
Oh, it's almost like he could have pitched tomorrow for us, right?
Yeah. But whatever, life goes on, and maybe our bullpen will kill it. They killed it tonight, so maybe.
Hey, our bullpen's been great all year. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Josh will have his thoughts about that for sure tomorrow night. Hopefully it's positive. Hopefully after, somewhat magical win. And he'll be with Joe Chambers, who's another great host. So definitely check us out tomorrow night. Thank you so much, everyone who's watching and listening to the podcast. Definitely stay engaged. Keep commenting and making this, show a little controversial, but also just fun and just about baseball and about Orioles and the team we love. And thanks a lot, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. It's fun.
Yeah, this was great. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
See ya.